This podcast proudly brought to you by the American Corner Sabah, by the US Embassy KL in collaboration with Sabah State Library Tanjung Aru.
Yes, at American Corner Sabah, we are bridging cultures between Sabah and the United States, fostering education, sustainability, and a shared future in a safe and welcoming space.
Yeah.
It is a corner where the diverse cultures come together, knowledge expands, and communities unite to create a greener and more connected world. So, whether you're looking to learn, collaborate, or simply explore, this is the place where everyone is definitely welcome.
To know more, follow us at dac.sabah on Instagram and TikTok, and American Corner Sabah on Facebook dan juga YouTube. Pakis Kii!
Bodine, tell him, what are we going to do? You going to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee.
There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop.
7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation. She's remembered and dedicated to the conversation of all men are created.
From the beauty of Kinabalu to the white sands of Mengayau, this is the American Green Corner Podcast.
And sekarang dia adalah American Corner Sabah Podcast lah.
Yes, sir.
Selamat kembali ke podcast American Corner Sabah Podcast berkolaborasi bersama dengan Kinabalu Podcast.
Yes,
dan juga berkolaborasi sekali lagi bersama dengan US Embassy dan juga Sabah State Library Tanjung Aru.
Yeah, man.
So saya Richado,
saya Kenny.
Kali ini kami akan bercerita tentang orang bilang dalam punya cerita, balik kepada history the making of
Sabah itself.
Sabah, bukan the making of Sabah lah.
Sabah.
The origin of our roots lah kan. Kita kena panggil aborigin kan juga, bukan?
No. I have probably I'm Mongolian descent lah.
I think me too. Tapi my brother ada buat ini DNA punya test.
Oh ya kan?
Yeah. So dia bilang ada match with one of these big names jugalah. So satu dia the Khan.
Kublai Khan.
Kublai Khan. Another one is Condoleezza Rice.
How?
What? I don't know how.
Jauh,
but itu yang ada lah. So very specific. Dia bayar $100 gitu.
Kamu bersaudara dengan Condoleezza Rice. Wow.
So very interesting actually. Kita ada satu guest hari ni yang kita kenal sudah lama, dan dia datang support kami masa di KL Podfest hari itu. Man. Dia orang pun ada podcast sendiri dia bersama dengan Hafiz, dipanggil Kopitiam Council.
Kopitiam Council,
yang, guys. Ya, nama dia pun Kopitiam tapi ada Council. So maksud dia dua views, yang satu council ni, satu yang tinggi, satu Kopitiam yang dikupi lah begitu.
Yes.
So bila bergabung melatup lah gitu.
So cerita-cerita di kedai kopi tapi council. Hai.
Ya. Wow. Apa itu kan? So tapi I follow them, and saya memang tengok dorang punya content everything. Sometimes saya repost juga whatever they talking about, macam basically macam kebanyakannya politics. For me, I believe whatever what's going on di dunia ini semua ialah Allah yang menentukannya. Betul. Tetapi di dunia ini pula ditentukan oleh politik because of rosaknya jalan, pendidikannya, ekonomi, harga-harga barang, culture dan sebagainya. Ini terbentuk oleh politik juga, because kalau politik itu bagus di sebuah negara itu, maksudnya semua benda pun akan jadi bagus juga.
Betul.
Kalau bertukar-tukar dia punya kerajaan, benda pun bertukar-tukar, maka kurang baiklah
dan bekalan air pun tiada lah.
Di Kota Merdu selalu tiada air. Bukan kita mau apa, but berbalik kepada apa juga yang berlaku di sini ni, bagi saya memang banyak politik ini memberikan impact yang sangat bagus, sangat banyak.
Yes. So
kita ada guest kita daripada Kopitiam Council. Please welcome Adi. Hold on. Let me just Adi Putera Anwar, something like that, right? So yeah. Please welcome to AC.Sabah Podcast and juga Kinabalu Podcast. Welcome, bro.
Thank you for having me. Richado and Kenny, I think last year 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
2 years ago. 2000, yeah, 2 years ago.
Okay.
The KL Podfest was 2 years ago.
I was not planning to have a second KL Podfest.
We are having KK Podfest.
KK Podfest. Okay,
Why not?
okay.
Kan?
Let's
Why not?
go.
We should plan for it.
Yeah, we should plan for
Yeah,
that.
so kita yang buat.
So Arif Adi Putera Anwar, right? So your dad is Anwar?
Yeah.
Anwar
Bukan
Ibrahim.
Ibrahim lah.
Oh, bukan. Okay.
So we have ANW juga. Tapi
NW sama.
ANW sama, tapi bukan Ibrahim.
Tapi kau punya NW yang ada twistering.
Ada.
Boleh taruh
Dia
di
float pun boleh.
Float sedap. Ui, kita puasa. So selamat berpuasa bro. Selamat datang. Selamat berpuasa bulan Ramadan ni. Saya pun dah beli banyak bercakap sangat. Takut lama-lama seorang tu nafas apa pandai bawa ni.
Sorry ya. Tadi saya itulah.
Ya, kau cerita pasal makanan. Yeah. So, because the first time tadi, first lot tadi, I mean a few weeks back.
Yeah.
So we got a interesting session with ChatGPT. So we podcast with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It was very interesting dan dia bertanya pasal makanan pula.
Saya terus tanya breakfast lah. So dia jawab. So saya tengok sekali, oh man.
It's okay.
So ChatGPT dah puasa jugalah.
Puasa of course. Tadi saya buang nasi.
ChatGPT tadi di screen dia ada nasi. So kami marah lah dia.
Okay, let's talk. Jangan kita banyak bising lah. Kita mau cerita sama Arif. Let's talk about your background first. Why actually kami panggil kau di sini ni? Tell us. Now, what is your background by the way?
I mean, if I don't want to tell my life story juga lah. Tapi I'll just give you the basic.
Yeah, basic a little bit. Yeah.
Currently, I'm working dengan the Institute for Development Studies.
Okay.
It's a Sabah think tank.
Okay,
So
IDS, right?
IDS, yeah. So we're under the same punya office. So we do policy research, anything that can help the state government to improve development.
Okay.
Tapi selain tu, I'm also dengan, like you mentioned, Kopitiam Council, podcast yang fokus dengan current affairs. So we like to cover international affairs, domestic affairs, local affairs. So usually we talk about what's going on in the world, current affairs. Then lepas tu zoom in pada Malaysia, what's going on in Malaysia, what's the hottest things happening. Dan lepas tu Sabah juga.
Zoom
like,
pergi Sabah.
Zoom. So, pasal semua ni ada kesan bah.
Betul.
Apa jadi di international ada kesan dengan Malaysia, apa jadi Malaysia ada kesan dengan Sabah.
Alright, agree.
So that is my focus. So, tapi memang I like anything to do with current affairs, history, politics, even culture juga. Recently pun trying to finish my PhD lah for political science.
Oh, you're doing it right now?
Yeah, we're doing it right now. Inshallah, we've done drafting end of this year. Hopefully, we'll see.
Okay, wow.
How many percent done?
Apa?
How many percent done with your
Waiting proposal defense.
Wow.
Dr. Arif lah soon.
Bukan
lah. Should be lah PhD. So your background is about current affairs, about the political, the geopolitics. I have to say juga.
Wow.
And also related to bukan saja dunia, tapi macam mana impact dia terhadap kita punya community di sini dan pembentukan mungkin kerajaan dan juga sebagainya di Malaysia dan juga Sabah.
Betul.
Let's talk about your background dulu sikit-sikit. Where did you learn all those stuff?
When I was a kid, I always ask my father, kenapa ni? What's this going on? Kenapa macam ni?
Oh, you like banyak question.
Memang banyak question. His answer selalu, ni kau guna Google, ni ada buku, kau baca.
Oh, okay.
Alright. So I would go through all these things, read through all these things, get exposed to all these things. Sometimes video game pun ada lah, macam history semua, cerita yang syok. So then I was cerita dengan dia, I always like bounce my ideas dengan dia. I would talk to him, then he would bounce ideas back to me. Then lama-lama before dulu I always wanted to be in the diplomatic corps. Mau masuk ke Wisma Putra. So I took international relations in Wales. The funny thing is the university was the first university to give the study of international relations.
Right.
They set it up this was after World War I. So the English, they set up they need to have in the university they need a department for international politics to understand what's going on to prevent another war. It obviously failed because World War II happened. So
Who won World War III? Right.
So that was my focus when I came to studying in Wales, international relations. Then I came back here.
How many years you studied in Wales?
It was about 3 years.
Okay.
And then I came back here. I did my master's in UMS in governance, and also it was international politics as well.
Which faculty? Science socials?
Science social.
Sorry. Science social faculty.
Okay.
Wow.
Then you work straight IDS.
Yeah, then I went into IDS.
Okay. Were you recommended or? Were you looking for it or macam mana?
You mean if work in IDS?
Yeah,
sure. Why not? You learn policy all the time, and you learn how to negotiate with all kinds of people, stakeholders. Macam sometimes you have NGOs say one thing, then you also talk with civil servants, they say another thing. So you find a way to gabungkan dia punya narrative to make sure semua kena wakili lah.
Okay, I understand.
From my understanding of IDS, is it like you guys sort of like the medium between the agencies and also the rakyat?
Yeah, definitely, because at the end of the day, we serve the government of the day.
Yeah.
The government of the day serves the people.
Yes.
The mandate of the people. So there's this ecosystem where everyone needs to be unified. Everyone needs to have a solid, cohesive idea.
Yeah.
So, okay, obviously, people in the agencies, they have they have a particular view. Sometimes they see from above. They may not be able to get the granular and smaller details, the finer details. So that's where we come in. We bring in the ideas like, okay, what's going on the ground? Atau orang pergi kawasan, okay, apa jadi sana? Apa isu sana? Okay, tentang pembangunan. What is the main obstacle for them? Then we synthesize it lah. We compare it dengan best practices di negara lain atau negeri lain, even Sarawak also. Then we try to find apa yang lagi berkesan, what's impactful for that community, for that area. We bring it over to the relevant agencies. Say, okay, this is what can be done. This is our recommendations, and this is how we can monitor and evaluate. So that is the.
How about the lackness of it? Do you study about that one as well?
Obviously, we have pun kekurangan di particular areas. We say tourism in particular areas. We say, okay, what can be enhanced? What is the most value we can get with the resources that we have? Sabah pun, we have to prioritize jalan mana we have to prioritize, what area we have to prioritize. So that's also where we come in.
So very general lah.
Very general.
Culture as well. Education as well.
Yeah, education as well. We have a lot of fields like tourism, human capital development. But for me particularly, my focus is on MA63. MA63 and the socio-political aspect. So my focus is on how can we enhance Sabah's position in the context of MA63, but also beyond MA63, because MA63 ada particular provisions, agreements saying that okay, these things are under state and these things are under federal. But there are things that we have to look into, like macam tourism. Mana tahu, who would have thought, macam the founding fathers Tun Fuad, Tun Mustafa, mana diorang fikir that tourism will become Sabah's biggest punya cash cow kan? So, but it's under federal punya control. But we see we're very reliant and dependent on tourism. So why not we make a discussion where tourism becomes slowly more of a state punya responsibility?
Correct.
That is what Sarawak is doing. So these are conversations I like to consider outside MA63 and more on the ideas of how can we enhance Sabah as a whole under Malaysia? How do we make Sabah more equitable? How do we make Sabah more distinct? Macam Sarawak lah. Diorang ada style diorang kan. Diorang very different. Sabah, Sarawak, very different from each other. Very different from what's macam di Johor, di Penang. So we should have. I was thinking. Different. So my idea is just like, why not we refine the system we have so that Sabah can be as distinct as Sarawak.
Okay.
Interesting. So when it comes to apa ni? Macam mana cakap apa? Pelaksanaan polisi.
That was I want about that. After you know, after you identify your report to and to whom, and how's the things going? Going.
Right
after. Obviously, it's the prerogative of the state lah. We can only recommend. We can only provide our suggestions. At the end of the day, it's what they do with it lah. We provide the step by step, the recommendations, and usually we do have committees, macam steering committee, technical committees that would ensure that this gets through. But at the end of the day, is we can only see from outside now. Like, minta update. Okay, apa jadi dengan ni? Then we find out what's going on.
But sayang lah kalau tidak, because it's research and development. It's like times and masa, times and masa.
So lots of effort wasted kan.
Kalau tidak diketengahkan. So banyak pengubahan undang-undang ini, pengubahan apa-apa juga orang bilang whatever it is lah yang akan digovern adalah ditentukan di parlimen, di dewan dan sebagainya. So sayang kalau itu yang sudah di research dan sudah di di filter dan sebagainya, di effort semua dari itu, tapi sampai situ just begitu saja dia hilang.
Memang limitasi lah. It's just a practical limitation. Sometimes government cannot be able to enact semua ni. Tapi I think one recent one we did yang successful is the Human Capital Development Blueprint. So that took about a few years, about 2 years to do it, I think. Bila saya masuk, it was already starting. Then it's still finished already. So it was just a mapping and idea of like how we can enhance Sabah punya human capital. How do we upskill orang Sabah? What direction is conducive untuk development? So the whole conversation was about TVET. How do we enhance TVET institutions so that we can have people who match the industry? Pasal there's a mismatch dengan industry, dengan practitioner. So we found the gap is that it's TVET. TVET has to be addressed, has to be enhanced. Barulah orang Sabah boleh masuk institusi TVET. dapat semua ni skills, then they can find themselves in the job market. Tak payah berhijrah pergi KL cari kerja. We can find it here as well, tapi we just need to prepare our people to have the necessary skills, and that was already launched. I think it was about last year.
Wow,
and,
that's good. Implemented. Implemented.
Yeah.
So talking about that, do the jobs open for each of that? I mean, no need to go to KL and everything kan, tapi itu job memang ada di sini lah.
Memang ada di sini.
Wow, okay. That's great.
In a way, it's macam it's like a tradesman punya craft lah.
Okay.
Di Australia, you have journeyman punya apprenticeship. Kan?
Yes.
You attach yourself dengan contractor yang buat
Tradesman.
yang bagi pipe semua, bagi aircon semua kan. So these are the jobs that are just as necessary juga. So bila ada masalah, kau panggil orang kan, kasi bagi kan.
Betul. Takkan kau panggil polis kan.
Yeah. Let's talk about how much you love history. Kami pun suka history ni. Kadang-kadang buat pandai jugalah. But there's a Google, there's ChatGPT now, very easy. Sekarang kau cari apa semua. Then I always intrigued about sejarah dan sebagainya. Pembentukan negara Malaysia, pembentukan Sabah. I don't know if you heard about Marudu Kingdom, which is started 1830 and then ended up by the British by 1845. And during that time, actually Sabah belum terbentuk pun. That was Marudu Kingdom that time, and it was well known sampai pergi all over the world. And where's the Sandokan start dan Syarif Osman begini. But by your readings, by your yang kau pernah belajar lah, kita ni originated from where? Di Sabahan ni.
Oh, okay. Itu macam asking the question of the world kan. Where does everybody come from?
Yeah. No, I mean Sabah itself lah. Native Sabah lah.
Sabah. Okay, so I mean there's a lot of theories as to why lah. One of the arguments I recently came across was that most, like say, the Dusunik punya people migrated from Sarawak. Migrated down from, you can see like macam the mountain region. Sabah.
Okay.
That's one theory lah. Another theory is that
tapi Sarawak tu from where?
Yeah, itu Sarawak from where. Another theory is that we are from a seafaring wider Austronesian people that came from macam the Pacific, masuk ke Southeast Asia, Asian negara. Then you settled here lah.
More believable.
Yeah, maybe more believable. That's why macam you see orang Sabah rupanya sikit very similar to the Philippines. Yeah, exactly right. So this is Austronesian punya identity as well. Or we can also say that maybe came from even Malaya juga. Penit Malaya, they also came from, they can have their own theory lah. Mana orang Melayu came from, they say Himalaya or Taiwan and all that. Then slowly moved there. So it's a story of migration really. Sabah, that's a story for everybody actually. Everyone migrated from somewhere. Everyone came from somewhere at different times. So if you want to be more specific with Sabah, is that back then we never really had this idea of identity, like how we call a German or a French a French. So we were very like,
this is interesting,
very kampung-ish lah. That's why I say the system of the kampung is very essential to not just the Malays.
You wrote in your article that
I did. So the identity of the kampung is the personal identity and the people identity that you have. That is why it's such a
it's set up as a culture.
Yeah, set up as a culture. It develops itself. Then you kau tahu lah cerita di Sabah kan. Bila one people dia berhijrah pergi naik bukit atau turun bukit kan, then they create their own tribe juga.
Yes, correct.
Another tribe.
Yes.
Then they have their own ethnic practices yang maybe they adapt pasal environment dia lain. Atau material pun lain. The materials and resources they have is different. That's why kau nampak semua ni banyak sub-ethnic di Sabah, tapi ada similarity. So I mean macam nampaklah the most recent is orang Kadazan. So that was set up by the idea was created by Tun Fuad Stevens. Say okay, the orang di Penampang, right? We should return. Back then they call it Dusun lah, orang Dusun. We should return back to an original name, which is Kadazan, which he proposes Kadazan. And then this, in the end, lama-lama it became characterized as orang di Penampang sera. So it's these kinds of evolution of when people move. You develop your own slang, you develop your own culture. And it doesn't have to be macam kau berhijrah pergi jauh-jauh kan.
I understand.
Just turun bukit kan, you stay there. You for a few generations, then you develop your own culture lah. Macam dalam keluarga juga, in a family. Like if you have a big family, some parts of your family have a different style kan. Yeah, so it's exactly the same.
Do you agree? I did my ethnomusicology last time about gongs in Kulintangan. So bila kita buat the research and everything kan, it's actually dulu there's no pengeluar tembaga pun di Malaysia ni, even Sabah. So yang pengeluar terbesar dia adalah daripada China. So meaning to say, dulu kita punya kulintangan semua ni daripada tembaga. So maksudnya tembaga tu dari China. So mungkin ada sistem butter yang berlaku di situ. So do you agree that okay, before I go how the culture was, my point of view of culture, how was it invented lah kan. I want to talk about the research yang I did masa the ethnomusicology I did tu, the dusun punya ni macam mana dia started and everything, and I spoke many times juga in some of our episodes about the Nunuk Ragang. If I don't know if you heard about the Nunuk Ragang kan, Nunuk Ragang in Ranau, semua orang tinggal di macam avatar lah, semua tinggal di atas pokok. Lepas tu daripada atas pokok ni diorang ada banyak keluarga, ribuan keluarga di sana, and once a year satu keluarga ni ataupun 10 keluarga ni akan turun untuk buat harvesting. Lepas tu tahun seterusnya berlaku begitu dan seterusnya begitu, dan satu masa ni the Rohingan something datang kasih dried up everything. Lepas tu inilah dia the nungada and everything kan, offering semua begini. Then then apabila tidak puas hati berlaku di Nunuk Ragang ni, diorang macam ada dispute lah, kira ada bergaduh apa semua. Diorang turun pergi ground. Lepas tu diorang pelan-pelan turun daripada Nunuk Ragang turun sampai Tamunan. Adalah dusun Tamunan, adalah sampai pergi Rungus yang tinggal stay di persisiran pantai, which is the Rungus people. Dan itu yang aku punya bacaan, dan aku ada masukkan dalam aku punya musicology last time. So my question, do you agree that the culture was actually made because of the norms, the normality they're doing every day?
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay. I mean, even when we buat macam ni, culture itself are the practices that you do and sustain over time, and it becomes accepted as something normal. Then you act out in accordance to it, kan? So it's like macam you have this, macam di rumah lah, you teach your kids macam okay, you have to take off your shoes di rumah, kan? Then you keep pushing that, it becomes normal. That becomes the culture in your household, right? Now you just extrapolate that into a larger scale in a group of people of 100 and 200 people, right? So there are definitely agreed principles that we all semua ikut, we all follow,
and in period of times,
over a period of time, it becomes naturalized. Sometimes it can become mythologized as well. Like, macam let's say 500 years later, oh kenapa macam ni? Oh, there must be a story why.
It became traditions, kan?
It become traditions. Then we ritualize it, we add more flourishes, kasih cantik sikit lah. Like we add more to it, kan, to see, because culture and rituals has always had a very spiritual and religious connotation, religious feeling to it. There's so, because it's so powerful, and religion is a very powerful animating force. You want to imbue these cultures with something very reverent, very sacred. So that's why you attach it to something like a practice or even a myth or even a legend.
Yes. Yeah, I think I do believe that one juga. So kalau ikut betul lah, the culture ataupun tradition, sebab biar mati mak orang bilang kan, jangan mati adat kan. So adat tu terbentuk daripada normality yang dibuat yang sudah bertahun-tahun lamanya dan sudah dipraktis oleh keluarga-keluarga ataupun community yang tertentu. But actually sebenarnya set by the human juga.
Yes.
Right.
So let's say kan, that's just me making a joke lah.
Okay.
So if we put it like, let's say Beaufort, my kampung, so everybody eats fried chicken dinner, and they connect it to something religious. And then let's just say 1,000 years later they're still doing that, and probably the youngins will be thinking like, kenapa kita makan fried chicken mesti dinner
mesti 5 biji.
Mesti 5 biji, lepas tu mesti hari 5.
Sebab tu kongkong dulu makan 5 biji, makan malam, siang tidak boleh, jadi begitu kan.
Wow, okay.
Tapi that's not really the case, because we know eating fried chicken every day is not healthy, kan?
Definitely.
Then your family say, okay, you cannot eat that, so it refines the ideal. Okay, maybe instead of fried chicken we say grilled chicken instead. It's healthier, more option. It's a better alternative. So these things get refined over time.
Refined over time.
It's not like it's
dipercantikkan setiap
even
kali.
Sekarang kan we challenge particular culture practices, right? So we cannot say exactly culture 500 years ago is the same as culture it is now. It's definitely evolved and changed over time, depending on the environment. Tapi kan, and this is what I mentioned in my article, is that you cannot explain culture just as a physical punya phenomenon, like or because cause and effect. But I argued
this spiritually,
not spiritually. There's an underlying feeling, or I call it a feeling lah, but an underlying logic that pushes us, that we just know some things lah. We call it a priori knowledge. It's like bila you're born, is that babies cry, right? We didn't teach babies to cry; they just know how to cry.
Correct.
It's these kinds of like by default we tahu je, and these things subconsciously manifest. We act upon these subconscious forces.
Right.
Now we imagine that not just as the individual, but in a group, in a culture, in a nation. These are particular imagery, particular subconscious forces that I argue is what gives us our identity. Is what we are acting upon all the time without even noticing.
Right.
It's very interesting kan?
So I guess when it comes to that, then every continent, every country will have like a preset setting that is different for each
Yes,
case,
exactly. That's why I use this this one thinker, Oswald Spengler.
Yeah,
because he talked about the West, and the Western civilization.
Right.
So he said that the West is on a trajectory that has been decided by something he calls the prime symbol. Now, every high culture, he argued, has a prime symbol. And we act in accordance to that prime symbol, depending on which culture we come from. So he said the West is, the prime symbol is infinite space. That everything is conquerable, everything is to be, the illusion is to be ripped apart and then you conquer it. That's why he calls it Faustian civilization. After the legend of Faust, is a wise man who sold his soul for infinite knowledge and wisdom, right? But he sold his soul to the devil. So he characterized the West as that, is that the West is trying to resolve every mystery in the world, in the universe, trying to uncover everything, trying to understand everything. Now you see the manifestation is that they're trying to conquer space.
Yes,
that's the final frontier. How do you? That's an illusion that they had to break. And even going back, that's why they embarked on colonialism. They wanted to peer the illusion and push boundaries, keep pushing for progress. That's what's infinite space. Which is true. They've colonized the world. But you've seen other cultures just as great, just as big, but they never attempted the colonial experiment that the West did, right? Because they feel animated by this need to, like I said, rip the illusion of infinity and make it tangible. So that is his framework. He used that to so that's what I use to try and understand what is Sabahan's feeling. What is Sabahan identity in that regard? Like what is Sabahan civilization? And is it different from let's say Malaysia. From Malaya? And can we characterize as such compared to the West? And what stage are we in right now? So that is the whole crux of like why I wrote the articles, because I want to try see if I can understand Sabah in this more grander systems punya theory instead of just saying, oh ini jadi pasal ni, or itu pasal tu. I don't like. I've gone to this point where I don't like exploring things as just physical phenomenon. Of course, I will have to look to it, but I feel like there's an underlying logic that defines us.
Have you heard about Sekolah Adat?
Yeah, Sekolah Adat.
Okay, what did you take about Sekolah Adat? Because the macam sekarang diperketengahkan lah supaya everybody knows about yang adat ini tidak diketepikan because of modernizations dan new cultures and evolves dan sebagainya, dan masih mengekalkan sekolah adat ataupun adat-adat ini diangkat sebagai yang dipraktikkan muda-mudi dan penerus kita lah. So what did you take about sekolah adat?
I think it's very necessary pasal di Malaya dia orang punya
kita
adat
tiada
juga.
adat pula.
Dia orang di Malaya ada adat juga. They follow particular principles and ideas. It's not exactly rooted dalam agama, tapi culture dia orang kan, like this unspoken practices, unspoken beliefs kan. So why kenapa Sabah nak boleh kan? Why cannot we act accordingly to our punya adat, our punya traditions, which we do. Macam Sogit itu pun adat.
Yes, correct.
We ada pun native code that follows the principles of adat kan? Tagal as well. So these are things that needs to be, because it informs why we kenapa macam sistem Tagal kan, kenapa buat macam tu. It's a communal way of making sure that resources in the river is maintained. So it doesn't get overfished, doesn't get overused. So these are things that must be explored, because so we can have a better relationship. Kenapa orang dulu buat macam ni kan? All our ancestors did these things, right? They did it for a reason. They did it because it's to preserve harmony with the environment, to make sure that they can live sustainably. So if we learn adat, we can also learn sustainability, which is sekarang the world, the global punya order says that we need to be sustainable development goals kan. Tapi we have been doing it for hundreds of years sudah. Culture, indigenous
People
culture, adat semua informs us to act sustainably sudah. And this is like as you mentioned modernization, macam we think we above nature kan, tapi ini Western punya thinking kan, we're above nature, kami sudah conquer nature, kami ada aircon sudah kan, so we conquered nature itself, we're going to conquer even more of it kan. But I think as Sabahans, we believe in living with our environment, trying to protect our environment, being harmonious with our environment, because we, like I said in the article, is that the idea of kampungism is that the kampung is the center of the physical world, where physical activities happen, where we go to our day-to-day life, macam the city lah in a way. But when you see the outside of the kampung, that is almost like a spiritual, almost mythical land that is untamed. Shouldn't be tamed. It has its own properties that we cannot comprehend, and we must respect it as such. Kenapa bila naik Mount Kinabalu, we say a prayer, or we have to be careful, we have to respect the mountain. It's the same kind of principle, which is adat, under this whole umbrella which we call adat.
So I guess safe to say Sekolah Adat is sort of like a cogwheel, an essential cogwheel that you will maintain and continuously teach the youth when it comes to, you know, having our Sabahan identity.
Exactly,
lah,
yeah. Supaya dia tidak lupa jugalah. At the same time, a lot of people macam, okay, jangan kalau hujan buang garam di belakang. There's a reason for it, right? Jangan makan selepas inilah, you know, jangan minum selepas itu. But actually, there's explanations, and dari segi adat, I think itu yang membentuk kita sekarang pun, yang adat-adat ini yang membesarkan ibu bapa kita, dan ibu bapa kita membesarkan kita. Dan aku rasa kepentingan itu sangat penting untuk semua kamu ada adat lah.
So
jangan tiada adat.
So why do we buang garam masa hujan? Why?
I don't know if you have read about that, tapi
I don't know.
So supaya dia I mean, kalau my grandmother last time, dia kalau supaya dia tak banjir lah, begitulah di belakang. So macam
simbolik lah.
Macam dari segi Islam juga, kalau main mikir if I'm wrong, kalau macam kalau kau mimpi orang apa meninggal ke apa, kalau bangun, kalau dah kiri, kalau kau bangun 3 kali gitu.
Pui.
Yeah, sort of like that lah. So let's talk about kau punya what you doing in the IDS pula. For how long that you've been doing this now?
I think by this month coming to 4 years sudah.
Coming to 4 years.
4 years.
IDS is a under government punya name, right?
Yeah, it's under the government. Yeah, we serve the government of the day.
Yeah. So I actually can come to know. Memang saya tahu ada di mana, tapi I don't know how that deep the ideas you're doing sebenarnya tahu.
It kind of feel like a secretive government agency for us, you know.
We're always outward facing. We always try to engage with every stakeholder that we can. It's not like macam I don't know, GCHQ atau di UK dia orang ada banyak think tank atau di asal banyak think tank, right? It's not like that.
Okay. Since you learn about the current affairs dan sebagainya internationally dan juga I mean globally dan juga locally. So recently I think this is going to be okay. So recently,
we'll see.
So the new president elected, I mean Trump now. So I want to talk about the culture, American culture. How does it vary? You know, how has it been so prominent and dominant, and also macam orang bilang how they are so prominent to the culture of the rest of the world.
Well, why do people follow it? So
what
much,
is it like a benchmark? What do you think?
Well, if you look at it before they became the prime power again, the hegemon, we call it hegemon, which is the power that controls the overarching power. Before that, it was the British Empire. Through colonialism, the British has been establishing an empire all across the world, extracting resources from everyone, subjugating everyone, and then they were winning wars left, right, and center.
Fascism.
Before that, it was the French Empire, because Napoleon became master of Europe, conquered everyone, and it was only when the British, the Russians, the Austrians banded together, they reshaped world order that way. So the British was the one that got the lion's share. But came World War II. World War I and World War II. The British hegemony, the British prime position was challenged because of war in Europe, and that's war is very expensive. War is a very expensive industry. You lose people, you lose resources, you lose money. So at the end of when the British, the French, the Germans, and the Turks, they all keep fighting each other, Russians as well. They drained their own resources, and then at the last minute, who came? The Americans came. The Americans came, secured their position. That they also, in a way, they became instrumental in defeating in the First World War. So the British started declining, and then the Americans. There was a vacuum. This is just the nature of things. When there's a vacuum, something has to fill up the vacuum. The Americans came. But that became solidified after World War II, because World War II was even more devastating. And the Americans, they not just helped assist in beating the Germans, the Nazis, but they spectacularly defeated the Japanese in the Pacific War. In the development of the atomic bomb. And because that lesson learned during war, what they learned during the war is that how to industrialize quickly, how to maximize the human population that you have to fund the war effort. You put the all the men, you conscript all the men to fight in the war. All the women are forced into the factories to industrialize. And then they have all these factories everywhere. So their production increased tenfold throughout the period of the war. And then now that the European powers have faltered, the European powers were able to reeling back. They had to also decolonize, let go of their colonial holdings. Someone filled the vacuum. It was the Americans and it was the Soviets. Obviously, the Soviets collapsed. Their own issue. But the Americans filled the void. And they filled the void with their own culture, with their own idea, which is capitalism.
Plus, they lost the Cold War as well.
That's the right word, capitalism, which is capitalizing whatever, so that people can, pandang dan respect tu setinggi-tinggi yang boleh. Because I have to say macam the war between yang mau pergi to the moon tu ni, yang tu ni, going to the moon and
race to space,
race to space and everything kan.
So
who goes first, who step on the moon first and everything. So I think because of that, I think World War II memainkan peranan sangat penting dalam the whole world memandang dan putting America as a benchmark ataupun something to look on to.
Betul. And when you describe the whole power change thing,
baru nampak kan?
I see. I played strategy games when it comes to this political
Minecraft
thing. Not really.
Okay.
It's more on macam civilization. Sid Meier's Civilization. I can see the map moving around. So what if British became a bigger empire?
Clash of Clans, I think.
That's
one of it. Okay.
COC. So it makes me wonder, if American didn't come to where they are today, and the British stayed in power, that would be a whole different world altogether, right?
You could also, alternative history is a very fun subject.
Yes, interesting.
The problem is that the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
So nothing is concrete, nothing is real. Unless you play like, I don't know, Total War
yes.
That kind of scenario to paradox punya games, strategy games. Then you see how it plays out lah. But when it comes to the British, right, is that if the British remained in power, would we see anti-colonial efforts as we saw during the late end of the 20th century? Did we see a lot of resistance to British rule as we did then? Or would it be curbed? Would it still be a very British world order?
I see.
Or would we see other European powers challenging the British? Would we even see Americans challenging the British? Right? Because power invites challenge. So in the American case, it's China is challenging them, Russia is still challenging them. So the British would still be the same situation in terms of power dynamics. It's just maybe different actors and maybe different ideas will come up. Maybe things won't be like the American style capitalism, but more of like an English oligarchic system instead.
So let's
between China and America.
China.
It's okay.
Okay.
I cannot answer that question.
It's banned. Let's play this fantasy game a little bit more, right? So I had this kind of like call me being imaginative lah. So I was thinking about Hong Kong being under British rule. So what if they continued and wherever they are heading, referring to that, let's think about Sabah and how, if we are still under British rule, how would that influence the Sabahan identity? Will be more English or
specific British guy, specifically British.
Yes, British.
Well, I've been to Hong Kong many times before COVID, and I always get the sentiment that they prefer being under the British than the Chinese, than China lah. And there's a lot of evidence as well for Sabah. Was that because they had the Cobalt Commission, which is set up to gauge a sentiment of people in Sabah, whether or not they want to form something called Malaysia, or would they rather want to be the British? And surprisingly, a significant amount, I think about 1/3 or 1/4, is it? Wanted to be the British to stay, wanted the British to be controlled.
Surprising.
So surprising as well. So if we look at other examples, maybe in the Pacifics, right, in the Pacific Islands, that is still under British dominion. British dominion. Maybe it would be similar. It's like the British is still indifferent to what's going on in Sabah. It's like, unless there's a impetus for resource extraction, then maybe the British would still like reignite its ambitions. Like, how do we enhance industries here in Sabah? How do we make sure that it's easy for us to get the coal? How easy it is to get the gold, the oil, so that we can bring it back over to the British as their own cash crop, right? Maybe they would step up their efforts to extract resources in Sabah, but then again, they would cost a lot of money, and then they would still need to make sure that the locals are governed properly? Like, how would we? Would they send
autonomically?
So we would be maybe under a white man governor. The governor would be a white man, or maybe someone that's mixed. To make sure that he can relate with the people here. But then we already have this issue dengan Melayu juga. We have this issue of like resisting federal rule, federal government, right? Apalagi we are being subjugated by in Westminster, right? They decide what's going on all the way halfway across the world. Maybe maybe even more resilient to that. Maybe younger generation would see that colonialism is a bad thing because that's how we see things. Colonialism is a net bad thing that happened. Maybe do we be calling more for like independence movements here in Sabah to resist, or maybe we'll be producing ideas like maybe we should join something bigger like Borneo Federation, something like that. So maybe that could be the logical endpoint based on your question.
I see. So it's funny
look at Timor-Leste, man.
Timor-Leste, Fiji, the Samoan island. I guess we might end up like that.
Probably.
Interesting. This is
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean macam banyak orang Hong Kong menangis kali itu kan masa dia kembali ke China kan. That time. But at the end of the day, bila coming to see the potential, I think aku personally nampak better with China. Cuma mungkin larger lah in terms of more demographically ataupun pembahagian itu ini, tapi
maybe jadi first world kah? Don't know lah.
I don't know. We never know.
We never know.
History lah.
Betul lah.
Arif, I want to ask you about Kopitiam Council pula. Before we got not so much of time, but I want to talk about Kopitiam Council. What do you talk about in Kopitiam Council?
Current affairs, international and local. We talk about what's going on around the world, politics as well, international politics. Like we do 3 episodes nearly every week.
Okay.
And we always follow the structures that the first episode of the week is we talk about what's going on in the world. So it could be about elections happening in, I don't know, maybe upcoming in Singapore. Singapore's having an election this year.
All right.
Or what's going on in ASEAN, or what's going on in the US with Trump's new tariffs and new deals and all this. Maybe we'd even cover the Zelensky visit to the Oval Office.
Yes.
We cover things like the ongoing genocide in Palestine to bring more awareness and more nuance to the issue. Then the second episode of the week is we cover something Malaysian, what's going on in Malaysia. So we had the protest in KL led by the students because they're unhappy what's going on. Then we cover what's going on in Sabah as well, like maybe the ongoing like recently I think Sabah, which is an organization NGO, they went to court against the federal government to see whether they have the right to challenge the Territorial Sea Act, which is the continental shelf, whether Sabah has a right to the resources more than 3 nautical miles from the shore.
It's been an issue.
It's things like that we is the structure that we follow. So I mean, there's we zoom out, then we slowly zoom in. And the benefit of that is that whatever we say in the first episode, we can see if we can apply it to the second and third episode. Lessons learned, so that
it's a good podcast, by the way.
It's like a funnel. I can see it.
It's because people we like to think that current affairs happening halfway across the world may not have effect on us. But it definitely does, because we see that politics, for example, in KK, the decisions made in KK in the Dun would have effects in Kudat, would have effects in Tawau. Much less what's happening in Putrajaya has effect on Sabah. What's happening in Washington, Beijing, might have an effect on
Malaysia,
Putrajaya. So it's these interconnectedness that we try to bring out. That current affairs is something that everyone should look into. Everyone should study. Everyone should learn, because there's so many perspectives to have on it. And the more discussion we have on it, the more we become aware. We become more worldly. We expand our horizons, and we can learn how we can use that to better ourselves. And by bettering ourselves, we learn how to better the state.
Wow.
Wow. I agree. I just don't know how to put it in words and as good as Arif did lah.
Wow, that's very articulate.
Curated and well said lah.
I am humbled.
Me too. Pandainya budak ni gitu lah. Well, anyway, thank you for your time. We are coming to our, end of the episode, but I would like to call you up for the next session. Probably in the future. Memang you guys are on, because Hafiz your partner on Kopitiam Council, selalu juga panggil dan tanya bila ada masa and everything. We would really love to talk more, specifically actually politics wise.
in another podcast because di sana memang kita boleh all out.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean here is not good. We have been shared so many stuff juga for the past episode. We work so hard so that people can engage, specifically related to America, related to American corner here. Sebab let's not talk about the other stuff, but let's talk about what we can bridge and what we can actually implement yang kita boleh sama-sama work on together.
Yeah, man.
Kan? Culture, environment, the globalizations, modernizations, and the tech that we have here. Like now we are in Fab and Design Zone. Kami pergi podcast pula di sini, padahal banyak lagi tempat lain. But we just want to promote the stuff here. But so I just want to say thank you for your time, and I
definitely
couldn't believe that there's now I have to believe lah. There's actually Sabahan yang Sabahan like this yang really aku time itu aku rasa aku sangat bodoh lah, to be frank lah. Umur dia I think you what 25 now?
29
now. Okay. Aku rasa aku sama saya tu masih lagi berfikir tentang ada things lah.
Saya 29 masih tengah berfikir pasal apa kereta saya mau.
Well, yeah, man. So,
but we do have our genius times lah.
I am still I don't know you. so thank you very much, Arif, for your time. I just want I felt so I mean terbuka a lot of things that which is in podcast scenes for me, meeting people is my time to learn my many stuff juga.
True.
So thank you very much for your time.
Me this first, I mean it's a nice change of pace. Lalu kami kena jemput orang for kopi council.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
We know what you mean, man. And from me myself, this has been a long time coming since KL Podfest, and we didn't know that we will be first meeting in a podcast session in another podcast. So I'm looking forward to having you in KP.
Definitely.
Yes, and I am seriously, when I say it, I am humbled by your knowledge and the things that you do in IDS, in shaping whatever that's coming for Sabah, and hopefully
it materializes. Hopefully the best happens.
Yes, and most importantly, hopefully that doctor title will be at the front of your name.
And we need more people like him actually, specifically in the governance to govern our governance.
That's true. That's true. Bakal CM.
Why not?
If you not jadi, I push you from behind lah. Okay. Saya behind the scenes punya.
Pandai lah.
Begitulah leader cakap dulu. Push behind last. Orang dari behind push dia.
Spoken like a true IDS person.
So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Once again. So I think that's about it. Kita akan berakhir di sini. Kita akan jumpa di minggu hadapan. Dan untuk kamu yang berada di Sabah ni, basically di KK ini, kalau kamu mau space of conducive space untuk macam-macam lah, a lot of things, leisure, relax play, we got our Fab Design Zone. Kamu datang di sini, kamu boleh berjumpa dengan Azmi, boleh berjumpa dengan the Sabah State Library, cakap pasal AGC, minta diorang space, minta diorang what we can do here lah, banyak macam-macam sebenarnya. We got the ICT punya area, we got our podcast punya studio sebenarnya juga.
Betul.
So work together with them, bincang macam mana kamu boleh dapatkan space, mungkin percuma dan sebagainya. Bawa orang sini buat kamu punya course apa boleh. Can do that. So I think dorang Kompetensi Council pun ada buat lah sikit. So this podcast proudly brought to you by the American Corner Sabah, by the US Embassy KL in collaboration with Sabah State Library Tanjung Aru dan juga Kinabalu Podcast.
Yes sir. At the American Corner Sabah, we are bridging cultures between Sabah and the United States, fostering education, sustainability and a shared future in a safe and welcoming space.
Correct.
It is a welcoming space. It is a corner where diverse culture come together, knowledge expands and communities unite to create a greener and more connected world.
Correct.
So whether you're looking to learn, collaborate or simply explore, this is the place where everyone is welcome. And I just noticed that in this room we can do robotic stuff as well. So come over and enjoy this place.
So, to know more, follow kami di ac.sabah di TikTok dan juga Instagram. Dan bolehlah join dan tengok kami punya episod yang sebelum ini di American Corner Sabah on Facebook dan juga YouTube. Sampai di sini saja. Saya Richado.
Saya Kenny.
And then saya Arif, boleh panggil saya Adi. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
Dr. Arif.
InsyaAllah.
Kami dari AC Podcast dan juga Kinabalu Podcast. Ciao Sin, ciao.
Ciao Bella, ciao.
Untuk melengkapkan kemudahan-kemudahan dan peluang-peluang bagi meninggikan pelajaran anak-anak negeri Sabah yang cerdik pandai, tidak kira apa bangsa,
is the
agama
American Green
dan kaum.
Corner Podcast.